fired up now. Late night YouTubers or early. The one thing that most people don't realize or process when it comes to how the world views success, and it's something I like to call the movie effect. It's what most people don't understand, why success confuses most people. Most human beings have no idea the amount of time, work, energy, in a lot of cases, heartache, fear, self induced punishment, struggle, some success, some struggle, some heartache, some wins, some losses, and so on and so on. What goes into the time, energy, and emotional commitment, mindset training? I mean, they just have no idea what it entails and what it involves. And if you want proof, just look at the world. Most people don't do what they want to do. They do what they need to do, what they have to do, right? Living in survival mode, which is what it is. I love to discuss this concept that I call the movie effect. And it is when we see a success story in a movie, they encapsulate someone living their dreams or experiencing worldly. And it's one thing I want to make a point too, guys. I'm talking about worldly success. I'm not talking about necessarily happiness or freedom. Well, if it's worldly success, it isn't. True, it's beyond success, peace of mind, joy, bliss, trust, love, these are all ultimately what really matters. And we're that inherently. But it's that most of us get this idea lodged deep into our unconscious minds. When we see success stories or people living their dreams in movies, they encapsulate that concept of this person succeeded and they became a success within a 2-hour time frame, ballpark. So the ego, or I'll just say the mind, it equates living your dreams, doing amazing things. Even though this sounds absurd on a conscious level, on an unconscious level, there is an idea that, okay, within this 2 frame, not that it took the person 2 hours, because they say 5 years elapsed, 10 years elapsed, but unconsciously, most people don't process what 5 years means in terms of following your dreams, in terms of practicing. What does 5 years of practice look like? Shit, most people don't want to practice 5 minutes or 5 hours, let alone 5 months. And I see this in blogging. So many people quit. I mean, hell, so many people don't even bother pursuing their dreams or trying to be quote unquote successful. They just want to get by. They just want to survive because, in part at least, there's a complete delusion, an absolute break from what you call reality, truth, when it comes to the hours and the days and the weeks and the months and the years worth of practice that is required to become highly skilled, credible, trustworthy, successful, to live your dreams. And there's just a complete disconnect. And that's one of the things that most people really don't get about success. They quit after a day, they quit after a week. They have these unrealistic, unconscious, and even conscious, but unconscious expectations. And that's one of the reasons why success confuses most people. It's this movie effect. I saw this story, and just as an example, it's what came to mind. I watched a story about the new Netflix special on 9/1. Now, I was a huge Hoops fan, as you see by this Hoop Hall Classic up in Massachusetts, Springfield, and one of the best high school tournaments every year. And I played hoops to the junior college level, practiced like crazy. Never really had a handle. I mean, actually, I had my best handle when I was an eighth grader. I could do all types of drills with the ball. I practiced so much. And then in high school, good shooter, but I just never had the confidence at the competitive level. Playground, fine. And I'm not talking like N1 mixtape, but I practiced a lot. But the reason why I wanted to do this little video and do a space on Twitter full of N1, it was a really well-known brand. They competed with Nike as far as sneaker sales, and then even merch. I mean, I'm not talking about across the board, but just basketball wise, let's say that for their little niche, basketball niche. But within an hour and 10 minutes, they encapsulated the rise and fall of a company that was conceptualized in 93, I believe, when I was a senior in high school. And that's when things started really getting popular with them. Well, it took a little bit to take off. They had this N1 mixtape shows on ESPN. And then eventually there was some rancor among the players. And interestingly enough, main event, my little connection to the N1 mixtape tour, main event, Wally Dixon from Linden, New Jersey. I actually played against him in high school. He's from Linden. I played at Union Catholic and Scotch Plains, and they were, I wouldn't say rival. Actually, they were. We were pretty good by senior year. I don't know if we beat them, but Linden was always a powerhouse. But I played against Wally Dixon in high school. He was a year older than me. I remember being on the court with him and him almost jumping over. Very athletic. So you're thinking about all these years. This is, I think they were sold, and I think the company, the owners, the founders sold it, and I want to say 2006. Just rancor from some of the players, and they just weren't really feeling it. And it wasn't even so much that. I think one of the big things was the sneaker designer who seemed, I think, short of a kind of a genius, left the company. He was burned out, and it just fell apart. So they sold it. And looking at 13 years encapsulated in an hour, 10 minutes, roughly. So when you think about that, and when you put that idea in your mind, just for a moment, why is it so darn easy to discount what it takes to get really, really good, and to put the time into effort and practice and learning and study? And it's not just that, guys. It's the expansion of the emotional intelligence. It's struggles, the fears, the low points, when you have to really delve into these emotions that most people don't. On a worldly level, losing it all, running out of everything, embarrassment, shame, learning how to interact with people, learning how to deal with people, different personalities, like all this stuff that some of us learn, but the ones that really go for it, like are all in, they're experiencing this for so many years. And most people don't understand how many thousands, 10,000 hours, 15,000. I mean, really good, really skilled, and experiencing worldly success and living your dreams. And everything is compartmentalized. It's not the microwave culture. Call it the Instagram culture. Call it instant impatience. People are just so used to getting things quickly, especially with the internet. And the movie effect, it does infect a lot of us. The effect infects a lot of us because there's that idea, that expectation of, well, wow, that movie inspired me to move in a direction to follow my dreams, to start working on my skills, to start honing my craft, to start practicing, which is phenomenal. But there's usually such an ego shock when after a month, or let's say 2 months of honing your skills every day for 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, practicing, unless you just have the deepest passion for what you're doing in that path, will be stunned at how, on some level, nothing seems to be happening. And that's why you need the passion. And most people, since they're deluded, they have a passion, but it's not that strong. And when it's not that strong, there's that level of delusion that, oh, I've been doing this for 6 months. Like, let's say as a blogger, nothing. Am I disconnected now? Won't be able to run through the comments over there in the live chat. And it's just complete delusion. People are kind of passionate, but then they would have thought, oh, within 6 months, I've practiced for hundreds of hours already, thousands, or hundreds. With blogging, I'm still getting 3 visitors a day. What's wrong? And then people quit. And in part, it's the movie effect. It's thinking by 6 months, I would have thought I made it big. I mean, I practiced for this long. Or a year. I've been doing this for a year or 2 years. And I remember, I think it was Amy Schumer, a story of her. She'd done an interview. And as usual, the reporter, silliness, said, how does it feel to be an overnight success? You just popped up on screen. You really exploded. Overnight success that you are. She asked her that. And Amy Schumer looked at her and said, New Jersey, I've been doing this for 9 years. 9 years. And it's not the passage of 9 years of time. That's another thing that most people don't get. It's 9 years of working, 9 years of practicing, and so much of the time, a lot of the time, nothing appears to be happening. Nothing appears to be coming together. Nothing. Nobody shows up. Nobody shows up because you're not clear. You're not skilled. You haven't put in the time. And then even when you're skilled and you're clear, you're still learning how to scale and how to create and connect. We're talking business-wise, but just whatever your craft is, you have to add this to your game. You have to add that to your game. You have to learn. You have to humble yourself. It takes not so much the effort. Course perspective, I would say the Course of Miracles, it's always mind. But for most of us in our minds, we're so unclear. There's going to be guidance to practice. And when there's guidance to practice, since we have a lot of fears, it's usually going to be a lot of practice. And this is why you have to love what you're doing. You have to fall in love with the process. If not, you'll quit. Almost everybody quits. I've seen it with blogging. I've seen it with just business in general. People quit. And then you hear these stories of folks that take 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. People quit after 20 minutes. They quit after 20 days. And again, guys, it's that movie effect. It's impatience. It's thinking, not processing what 5 years of working on something for an hour to 2 hours to 10 hours every day means before you get the payday, before you get well known or gain the skills or gain the promotion. And that's why this whole gig of life is emotional intelligence. It's all mind training. When those people say who are iconic, who are happy and worldly success, but especially the folks that are doing it from a very high energy, Gary Vee. And I just like bringing up these examples because, the icons that are doing it, hey, Suen, from that really high energy, like Gary Vee, he talked about former neighbor in Edison, New Jersey. I grew up in Plainfield. His connections there with these icons and these people. Not that I knew him. I didn't find out until later. But anyway, 14 years. He's talking about putting in 14 years of laying a foundation. And not that he, didn't experience worldly success before that, but thinking about that. And it's 14 years of practice and creating and connecting and work. It just seems alien. Because when we're thinking about the movie effect, you're like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, an hour, 50 minutes, but let's just say 2 hours. In your mind, I was watching that N1 and talking about 13 years, rise, explosion, kind of the downfall in the last year or whatever, a year and a half, and then they sold it. But even that first year, they said that first year they lost money. So they were working a lot around the clock sometimes. That first year, putting in all that effort and not only not make money, they lost it. And this is so common. And to think 365 days, think of a year from now. We're watching this live. This is August 31st, 2022. That means a year of effort towards moving towards your dreams, of being successful, of laying the foundation where probably not a lot's going to happen on a worldly level. This is why you have to love it. So from 8/31, August 31st of 2022 to August 21st of 2023, 8:31, every day getting after it for the year. It's a long time. And then when you start saying year after year, you have to love this gig, guys. If not, you'll quit. You have to follow something, a dream that you're passionate about, because you develop the skills, the mind training. I mean, you do that separately. But even just through your journey, you will develop the skill of being patient, because so few people intrinsically are patient, and appreciating doing something you're passionate about over the period of time when all of your impatience, all of those horrors, those terrors, those impatient, panicking urges, when they come up enough and you allow them up and you feel them, that sheer panic and that hopelessness and that fear fueling that, feeling that and stepping into it feels really bad, but clearing that out is what organically makes you patient. When you get rid of the fears fueling the impatience, then you become patient. Then you relax. Then you become detached. Then you do videos, and if nobody shows up, or spaces and nobody shows up, or write posts and nobody shows up, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you start to learn, oh, that's what all these really happy, successful, thriving people talk about. Being patient, being in love with the process, and mindset. Mindset. That's why I talk about it all the time on Blogging from Paradise. I'm sharing other bloggers watching their struggles, how it's mindset. They have fear in their mind. That's why they're struggling. It's not because of Google. It's not because of blogging. It's never the outside stuff for things. It's always your mindset, because the world is just playing out your conscious, and more importantly, more predominantly, your unconscious beliefs. They are. You are in essence telling them what to do. And if you're struggling horribly, if you're quitting, if you're failing, and this is impatient mindset. It used to be when I was growing up, I'm 47 now, they call it the microwave culture. Remember, I was a little kid, they came out with things called a microwave. So before the microwave, and I don't know if I technically lived before, but before they were really big, I was a really little kid. We didn't have a microwave in the house. I remember when we got our first microwave. Before that, you had to cook stuff in the oven or on the range, and some things tend to take a lot longer. I remember my mom making popcorn before microwave popcorn. Got out the pot. Actually, I make a mean popcorn now because of elk. Mom's name's Elka, or elk. So I remember learning how to do it, where you put the oil on the bottom, put the popcorn, maybe a little salt to season it, speed things up a little bit, and you had to shake it. Microwave culture, boom, put it in, 2 minutes, you're set. So that was back then, where people developed what called a microwave culture, culturally back then, wanting things yesterday, impatience, wanting things now, being impatient. Now at the internet, it's so much more pronounced, because it's not making popcorn in 2 minutes with phones and the internet, and it's been like this way for a while, but you can get a ride 3 hours away, a 3-hour taxi cab ride in 5 minutes. And Kelly got that recently when she was traveling from New Jersey. Didn't feel like doing the public transport bit, so she took an Uber or Lyft, I think, from New Jersey to upstate New York. And it's like you get a ride. Think of these other things, Amazon, ordering groceries online. I mean, of course, there's so many other incredibly convenient options. But then when it becomes time to build a business, or to follow your dreams, or to mine success through some dream of yours, you're not realizing that what went into Uber to create that service, what went into Amazon to create that service, the thousands and thousands of hours and companies and visions and the founders that helped put it together. To be successful, it's so many years. You have to drill that into your mind. There's never any across the board certainty, other than the fact that you at least have to put in a substantial amount of time in your mind to feel clear and confident, to become skilled and credible. And we know this. We know this, yet the unconscious panic and fear in this movie effect of, What a great story. They talk about 5 years. They talk about 10 years in movie, 10 years later. And you look at that in a movie and you don't think in your life, 10 years from now would be August 31st, 2032. Or let's look back 10 years. August 31st, 2012. What was your life like back then? What's happened since then? Wow, that's a long time. And it's not just the elapsing of time. It's not just time elapsing 10 years. It's 10 years of work. That's a whole different ballgame. It's just a different world. That's why so few people more people are becoming entrepreneurs, but are happy, successful entrepreneurs. They cut themselves off the feet. And goodness knows I've done it. Like, I'm sharing this from my personal experience and obviously observing it in other folks and in bloggers. Mainly, but then just people in general. Most people give up way too soon because they're deluded. Their expectations are absurd. Their expectations are deluded. They think, man, look at that. That's an inspiring story. And then they're not thinking that they're going to have to practice the next 5 years every day to get really, really, really good. And you got to practice when you're not getting any money. You got to practice when nobody's showing up for a long time. That's just how it is. When you pay close enough attention to these movies, even if you become perfect on some level and you become impatient, you really don't process the amount of time and energy and work that goes into it, you at least start seeing these patterns and you're like, yeah, this is another person who's successful, living their dream. And they say they were practicing every day for a long time. Nobody was showing up. They weren't gaining any recognition, notoriety. They weren't gaining exposure. They didn't have the connections yet. They were off the radar screen. They weren't on, radar screen of influential folks or mentor, whatever. So you'll start noticing that. And the more you allow that to seep in, and that's why it's cool to watch and why I tend to watch quite a bit. It's of the world, but it's just, you see once again, this N1 company, a vision, people who were passionate. And it was that first year, it took off for a company relatively quickly. The first year losing money, and they were just after it relatively quickly. But even then, you see how it morphed, and you see there were certain points where you face adversity because you're unclear in most cases. It's gonna pop up. It's going to pop up. You will face adversity. However, if you're willing to... I put you in a timeout. Ha ha ha. Sorry, said to put you in a timeout. Oh, this is a cool feature. I kind of like that. Huh. Learn something every day. Okay, cool. I can hide their messages. No offense. I learn something every day. It's seeing again these patterns, and their moment of adversity was they had signed Stephon Marbury, who I used to chat with quite a bit on Twitter. Hey, look at all these connections. Phenomenal player in high school legend in New York, went to Georgia Tech for, I think, a year. I think he was sophomore now. It's freshman year. Pretty sure, right? Yeah. Right to the NBA, star right off the bat, starting off, signed an N1 contract. They signed one of the top players, young players in the NBA. And the first game, he blew out his ankle. He broke his ankle wearing these N1 shoes. Now, that's, what didn't seem bad enough. The fact that the guy, their whole campaign was broken ankles, as far as Stephon Marbury with the lightning quick crossover would, quote unquote, break people's ankles. Playground trash talk, basically fake you out and break your ankles. Then you have the guy actually break his ankles. So that was just a totally huge hit for them sneaker wise. And they had to really rethink what they were doing after that, because just, so you see this whole evolution, facing adversity after they had some success and having to reinvent themselves and rethink. And it's just, when you see it, you realize this is a long haul journey. This is much more of a marathon. So the basic idea, guys, you better love it. You better be passionate about your success. You better love it. And it will be a marathon, not a sprint. So when you really love it and it's going to be a marathon, you'll be patient. You'll relax. You'll do things intelligent. You'll actually avoid a lot of mistakes that impatient people make. You'll avoid a lot of errors, a lot of obstacles that impatient entrepreneurs make. You won't burn bridges, or I wouldn't call it burning bridges, but you'll let go what you need to let go. And then you'll enter into the proper frame of mind to experience long haul, long term blogging success. So that's it for tonight, guys. I'm going to hit the sack pretty soon, about 11:30 here on the East Coast. Maybe do a little bit more, but I think I'm about done for the night. Thanks so much, Sue-Ann. Much love, my friend. I'm going to roll. And YouTube. See you later, guys. Until next time, enjoy Paradise Hall.